All right, welcome back. Today we're digging into something, well, pretty extraordinary. A phenomenon that started making waves back in the mid-1990s.
That's right. It came from missionary reports initially, and honestly, it sounded almost unbelievable at first.
So set the scene for us. Where did this all begin?
Okay, so picture this. It's 1994, India. Missionaries David and Jan Watson send a report back to their headquarters.
And this report contains something surprising.
Surprising doesn't quite cover it. Astonishing, maybe? They reported nearly 100 cities, towns, villages with new churches, and thousands of new believers.
Wow, okay. Thousands. In nearly 100 places.
Oh.
So how did headquarters react to that?
With, well, skepticism. A lot of skepticism. The message back was basically, this can't be.
Right, like, are you sure you counted right? Or maybe?
Exactly. Either you've misunderstood the question or, and this is pretty blunt, you're not telling us the truth.
Oof, that's direct. What did the Watsons say to that?
Their response was simple, just 3 words. Come and see.
An invitation. Did anyone take them up on it?
Oh, yeah. Later that year, Watson's supervisor went. And they admitted later they went over very doubtful.
Can't blame them, given the report. So what did the supervisor find?
They visited Lucknow, Patna, Delhi, Varanasi, loads of smaller towns and villages too.
Okay.
And it was exactly as the Watsons had said. The supervisor's quote was pretty powerful. Everywhere we went, it was exactly as Watson had reported. God was doing something amazing there.
So complete turnaround. Seeing is believing, I guess.
It really seemed to be. And around this time, people started connecting these events to a Bible verse, Habakkuk 1.5.
Which says?
Look to the nations, watch and be utterly amazed, for I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe even if you were told.
Huh. You can see why that resonated. It felt like something unbelievable was happening.
Precisely. And crucially, it wasn't just India.
Ah, okay, so this wasn't an isolated incident.
Not at all. Within the next few years, similar stories started surfacing. Southeast Asia, Latin America, China.
All over the place, really.
Yeah. It wasn't just, one church growing fast here or there. It felt like something bigger, a pattern.
And that's where this term came from.
Exactly. People started calling them church planting movements, CPMs.
So it went for this, initial shock in India?
Yeah. A small trickle of reports, as the sources say.
To a recognition that this was happening more broadly. A steady stream.
Right. A steady stream of news about often people groups who hadn't really been reached with Christianity before. It suggested a real shift.
Okay, so give us some more examples. You mentioned the scale was becoming clearer.
Definitely. Let's jump to East Asia. Around the year 2000, a missionary had a plan, a 3-year plan, to start 200 new churches.
Okay, 200 churches in 3 years. That sounds ambitious already.
It is, but what happened was, they hit that 200 church goal in just 4 months.
4 months, not 3 years.
Nope, 4 months. And it didn't stop. By 6 months, it was 360 churches, and get this, over 10,000 baptisms.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. The missionary apparently prayed for God to enlarge my vision because it was just so far beyond expectations.
I can imagine. And you said this wasn't just Asia?
No, absolutely not. Different context entirely. A Latin American country, also in the 90s, and this was during a time of pretty serious government persecution.
Okay, so difficult circumstances.
Very. Yet, the number of churches went from 235 to over 4,000.
From 235 to 4,000.
Yeah.
With persecution.
Yeah, and they had more than 30,000 converts waiting for baptism. It just shows the resilience,
It really does. It kind of flies in the face of the idea that pressure always shuts things down. Were there examples in, say, the West, too?
Yes, surprisingly perhaps, Western Europe. A pastor and his wife started 15 house churches in 1 year.
15, okay.
But here's the kicker. They went away for 6 months. And when they came back, the number of churches had doubled, maybe even tripled on its own.
So it just multiplied while they were gone.
Seems like it. Suggests real local ownership, doesn't it? Momentum.
Definitely. Like it caught fire.
Right. And another one, Africa. A missionary strategist. Worked for 30 years, planted 4 churches in that time.
Okay, 4 churches in 30 years. Slow, steady work.
Very. Then something shifted. In just 9 months, they saw 65 new churches planted.
65?
Yeah.
After only 4 and 3 decades. That's an incredible acceleration.
It really is. Or Southeast Asia, between 93 and 2000,
Right.
started with 3 small house churches, maybe 85 members total.
Right, very small beginnings.
7 years later, over 90,000 baptized believers in 920 new churches.
Good grief. The scale is just hard to comprehend sometimes.
It is. And back to North India, where those first reports came from, between 89 and 2000, one people group went from 28 churches
Okay.
to over 4,500 churches. Estimated 300,000 baptized believers.
These aren't small changes. These are massive societal shifts, it seems.
They really are. And the source material, summing up the decade before it was written, says literally millions of new believers have entered Christ's kingdom through these CPMs.
Millions.
Yeah.
Okay, so that obviously begs the question, what is going on here? What are these movements? What makes them tick?
Exactly. And that's the core aim of the book we're drawing from, to understand, as they put it, not only what God is doing, but also how he is doing it.
So how do they approach that?
It's structured. First, describe the movements, what do they look like? Then, what lessons can we learn? Are there common principles? Then look at it biblically. And finally, okay, how should we respond?
Makes sense. And one term that comes up is strategy coordinator. What's that about? Sounds different.
It is a bit different from maybe the traditional image. A strategy coordinator is someone who develops and helps implement a whole plan, often working with many others, to reach an entire people group with the gospel.
An entire people group.
Yeah, defined usually by sharing a common language and ethnicity, sometimes called an ethno-linguistic group. The source calls it a new paradigm of 21st century missionaries.
So less focus maybe on just individuals, more on the whole community.
Kind of a broader, more strategic view. And they often focus on unreached people groups, those who haven't really had a chance to hear the message yet.
Got it. So how did people start to figure out what these movements had in common?
Well, there were some important meetings. The source highlights gatherings in Rockville, Virginia, and then Singapore, both in 1998.
Okay, what happened there?
They brought together these strategy coordinators, researchers, people on the ground witnessing this stuff. The goal was to hammer out a working definition of a church planting movement and figure out, what are the common threads? What elements keep showing up?
Must have been intense discussions.
Oh, yeah. Described as lively debate, energy ran high, whiteboards filled with ideas, characteristics, challenges, trying to distill it all down.
Did they find what they expected?
Not entirely. That's one of the interesting things. The source says God surprised them.
How so?
Well, some things they thought were essential for ministry seemed to be missing in these fast-growing movements.
Really? Like what?
Yeah.
Though the source doesn't specify, the implication is interesting.
The source doesn't list specifics right here, but implies things like perhaps formal leadership training or buildings maybe. And conversely, other elements that were clearly important were almost overlooked because they seemed so obvious.
Huh. So challenge some assumptions.
Definitely. It suggests, we always need to be looking at what's actually working on the ground, not just sticking to old models.
And this led to something concrete.
Yes. All this discussion was synthesized into a booklet, 57 pages, called Church Planting Movements. Came out in January 2000.
And how was it received?
It spread like wildfire, apparently. Translated into over 20 languages within the first year, tons more since. It became a key resource for many evangelicals trying to understand this phenomenon.
20 languages in a year is fast. Shows the demand. Did the understanding stop there with the booklet?
No, it kept evolving. The source material looks ahead about 3 years, so around 2003.
Okay. What changed by then?
Well, it became super clear that CPMs weren't just an Asian thing anymore. They were popping up literally all over the globe.
Everywhere.
Pretty much. Researchers were tracking more than 30 distinct locations where these movements seemed to be happening. So the understanding became much broader, more global.
Right. The initial snapshot expanded.
And the authors are clear about who this information is for.
Who are they writing for?
They say it's for any Christian who wants to understand God's work in the world, really, but especially for those feeling drawn to mission, to being involved somehow.
So, an invitation to learn
Yeah.
and maybe participate.
Yeah. The book then lays out its plan.
Ah.
Look at more examples, movements, and near movements. Find the unique bits and the common bits. Tackle the tough questions people ask.
And check it against Scripture.
Absolutely. Like the Bereans in Acts, examine it carefully. And then ultimately figure out how God might want people to get involved.
Yeah.
It ends that section saying, this is where the real adventure begins.
Okay, so let's wrap this part up. We've basically traced the emergence of this really unexpected phenomenon, church planting movements.
Yeah, starting with that almost unbelievable report from India, which turned out to be completely true.
Moving from initial skepticism to realizing this was happening globally.
Right. India, Southeast Asia, Latin America, China, Africa, even the West, very diverse places.
And we touched on the role of these strategy coordinators, this different approach, and the effort to really understand what ties these movements together.
Exactly. People collaborating, sharing notes, trying to grasp these dynamics of rapid growth, and recognizing that the learning is ongoing as these things continue to surface.
It really makes you think. I mean, hearing about such unexpected, widespread growth in faith communities across totally different cultures,
Mhm.
it kind of prompts a broader question, doesn't it?
Mm.
Like, what would it look like if that kind of rapid, almost viral growth happened in other areas?
Mhm.
In movements for social justice, or maybe the way a new technology spreads, or even just how new ideas catch on.
Yeah, that's interesting. Are there underlying principles that apply across different kinds of movements?
Exactly. What are those common threads, maybe, in any big shift? And how could we, get better at seeing them, understanding them, maybe even contributing to positive change in whatever field we're in? Something to ponder, I suppose.